Welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable AF, a podcast hosted by Nikki D Lovely. That's really just her diary disguised as a podcast, but who cares? You're here for it. Join in as she addresses her self-reflections on life, love, and dating, and gives us all the tea by being more vulnerable than she ever has, with herself and the world. So let's get started in today's episode with Nikki D Lovely, already in progress.
Hey y'all, and welcome to another episode of Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable SF. I know, it's been a while, but I've come back, yes indeed, and I'm glad to see that you're here with me. I think one of the hardest things since starting this podcast is being consistent with being vulnerable, because I don't think a lot of people realize that being vulnerable is hard. Or maybe people do realize is hard. That's why it's not a lot of people been like, well, here's my podcast called I'm as vulnerable as I'm going to be today. For most people, it's hard to let down that guard and to share those stories and you guys know, I've told you this so many times. It's been hard for me to be vulnerable, to open up, to share the stories and the tears, and a lot of it is painful, and nobody likes to go to painful places. So it makes sense why a lot of people aren't vulnerable. So I'm not like, yay, we're being vulnerable today. No one's excited about being vulnerable and opening up, except for me lately. And this is such a weird flip. And I knew that I would get to a place. I knew there was a reason why I didn't write a book about my life 10 years ago or 15 years ago, because I knew I wasn't ready. I always knew I wasn't ready. I would start writing a book and I'm like, I'm not ready to put this out. I'm not ready to be this vulnerable, I wrote No F-Boys Allowed, and that was actually pretty vulnerable, but I was still very, if you read that book, I was still very detached from those chapters, the first 6 or 7 chapters. It wasn't until like the last 3 chapters I started talking about myself all the way, where I was really like opening up and putting myself out there. And it wasn't until dating this year that, this year? No, this is 2024. Wow, it wasn't until dating last year. So dating last year, I put on my vision board, which I didn't do this year, by the way. But last year I put on my vision board that I was going to, start dating and find me a guy, that other crap or whatever. And I actually put myself out there to start dating. And I will say that although I did not find Mr. Right, I am not mad about the dating experiences that I did have, because I learned a shit ton about myself in just that whole year. I'll give that whole year of learning. I really learned a lot once I started doing this podcast, believe it or not. When I started doing this podcast, I realized how emotionally unavailable I was. After I started talking to the last guy, and I realized I was still entertaining emotionally unavailable men, only to realize later that the reason why was because I was emotionally unavailable. So, yep, I was willing to say it. I was willing to sit in it. I was like, wait, what? You mean you can't blame someone else? No. I had to sit in it and blame myself. I even remember being at the last guy's house I was talking to and being on the phone with my friend, and she was saying something about being vulnerable. And I was like, I can't do that. I was like, I don't want to do that. She's like, why not? I was like, I don't know what it is. Something about it just makes me scared. It frightens me, It was something about it that just frightened me. And so once I realized that in order to overcome my fear, I had to face it, and I had to push myself, and I had to share my story, And I had to talk about it. And I had to talk about how I was feeling. And I keep saying use the word had. I know I didn't have to. But I had to, people. The only way to get over your fear is to force yourself into it sometimes. And my fear of being vulnerable, and here's the thing, I'm still afraid to be vulnerable with other people. But at least I started being vulnerable with myself. And that's the start. You know how they say, how can you expect yourself to be a certain way with someone else if you don't even give that to yourself? How do you expect yourself to love someone else if you don't even love yourself? I think it's the same thing. How can I expect myself to be vulnerable with someone else and I haven't even been vulnerable with myself? And I mean, consequently, it meant, talking through a podcast. But at the end of the day, there was no one here. Yeah, you're listening to me now. But I'm literally in my car talking to myself. I'm literally in my car talking. Well, I'm talking to you. You're listening, right? But as I'm recording this, I'm talking to myself in the mirror. Anyway, that sounds really weird. I'm not the man in the mirror. I'm not Michael Jackson. But you understand what I'm saying. So the first step was in realizing that I need to be vulnerable with myself. And in doing that, I became vulnerable through my podcast. And now I can't shut up. Because I've told the story once and I've asked questions about, why did I do that? And why do I feel a certain way? I think you even noticed when I'm doing this on this podcast, this is my first time actually talking about things and talking it out and talking it through and asking myself the questions and answering the questions to get to the bottom of whatever it is I'm afraid of. Vulnerability in itself. Why was I so afraid to be vulnerable? Because when you're vulnerable with people and you show them who you are and they leave you, it makes you question your self-worth. It makes you question, well, maybe I'm not good enough. I had my daughter recently ask me something very similar. She's like, why do I get so anxious if someone doesn't call me back right away? Or if somebody doesn't text me back right away? And I was like, it's probably because you put so much of your self-worth on whether or not someone calls you back. It's not even the fact that you care what that person thinks. It's just that in them not calling you back, you're like, well, maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. You're afraid of being judged, first off. And then some of us have a fear of abandonment. I know I had a fear of abandonment where I would have, be vulnerable with somebody. And my fear of abandonment came from my very first serious relationship with someone where he just took off and left me. And that has carried over into my adulthood. I'm just not getting to a point where I realize that shit. And I'm like, damn, you sabotage relationships because of that one person who, abandoned you when you were 14. And now that you're over that, we're over 14. We're not doing that anymore. But what we are doing, we are going to be grown-ups. We are going to figure out what we're doing. We are going to talk things through. We are going to be civil. We're going to learn ourselves. Right at the 9 to 11 mark. Okay, anyway, let's continue. My hair's a big puffy mess. I can't believe that caused me heavy rainfall expected Wednesday morning. That's not good. $30 to charge my vehicle to 200 miles. That's ridiculous. I might as well have gotten a gas vehicle. If I'm going to pay $30, at least I don't have to wait an hour to put $30 worth of gas in my tank. But then again, I guess I'm not paying $30 in gas. So, that's the other side of that. Anyway, let's go back to being vulnerable and what I learned and what I'm so happy I learned this past year, because I did. I realized I missed out on the love thing. I missed out on the love with the significant other, with a person. But I learned so much about loving myself. So much about loving myself. And I think that's what I'm happiest about. It's kind of sad because I really do miss the guy that I was talking to last. But the principle of the matter is his ego was not going to allow him to love me And his past traumas were not going to allow him to love me the way I needed to be loved. So there was always going to be a missing piece. And as much as I didn't want it to end then, it had to. And it was no sense in like dragging it out and then just being hurt later. It was better to just go ahead and get rid of it early on. And in doing that, I realized I was able to be vulnerable with myself. I was able to touch on triggers. I was able to learn how to ask myself the right questions. I was able to realize how to be more self-aware. I feel like I'm like a fully developed person right now. And I hate to say it like this. And this is me being vulnerable and me hurting in the inside, because I know I'm not the only one that does this. I feel like I wasted so much time in getting to where I am now. And that I'm like the slow person on the bus. Like, I'm like, how many people have already been where I'm at right now? And how long did it take me to get here? And I feel a little bit embarrassed about the fact that I had to go through all this just to get to this situation. You know, nobody wants to be looked at as the slow person. That's why so many people pretend like they know the answer when somebody says, you got any questions? There are tons of people in that class that got questions in the class, but they're not going to raise their hand because they don't want to be the only person asking a question or the only person looking dumb. And that's where I'm at. I feel like, how long have I been the only person in the class looking dumb? But if I'm going to take the situation for what it is, which is there are several people who I'm sure are in a situation just like me where they are like, they're not even willing to go forward and start working because they're like, I don't want to look dumb. So I'm just going to stay where I'm at. I don't want to ask for help at this point because then that's going to make me look dumb for not knowing. So I'm just going to stay where I'm at. So if I'm really going to give myself grace, I got to give myself grace for not caring about looking dumb in this moment, not caring about how long it took me to get to this moment, and to just be grateful that I finally fucking made it to this fucking moment. I made it, y'all. I'm married now. I'm not married, y'all. I'm not married. But I'm married to the idea of being a better version of myself and in not caring what anybody else thinks about it. I am married to the idea of being a better version of myself, regardless of what anyone else thinks of how I should be that better version of myself. I am married to the idea of caring only about what I think I want for my new life. And that's an amazing place to be. Especially when you've never been there. Especially when you've been a people pleaser your entire life. Especially when you've been worried about how your parents are going to look at you and think of you or feel about you and what your decisions are about your own life. Yeah. I'm so fucking glad I sat down and decided I was going to be vulnerable for 6 whole months. I'm glad I was able to sit down and just break free. And even if I was just talking to myself, I realized that that's all I needed to talk to. Me. I was the only person I needed to talk to. And yeah, you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you. But I didn't need you. How many of us are looking for things in other people, looking for assertion from other people, looking for accolades from other people, looking for other people to listen to whatever it is we got to say, when we really just need to truly sit down and listen to ourselves? We really got to sit down and talk to ourselves and ask ourselves. I know it sounds so weird for me to be like, oh, when you talk to yourself and you need to ask a question. I'm not saying it like as a crazy person. I'm saying it as a self-awareness assessment. You need to be able to sit down and talk to yourself and say, Nikki, why do I do this? Or fill in the blank with your name. Why do I do this? Why am I like this? Why do I say this? Why Why do I feel like I need to please this person? Why does what everyone else say matter over what I say? Where did I get that from? Where does that stem from? What does that say about me? Why am I afraid to be vulnerable with my feelings right now? Why am I afraid to tell this person that I really want to start my own business? Because I really want to start my own business, but I'm afraid of what they may say. And if they say something I don't like, I'm completely going to shut down. Why do I need that validation from this person? We don't ask ourselves those deep freaking questions. We don't ask the why. We don't ask the why. Ask yourself the why or the why not. Give yourself permission to have a freaking conversation with yourself and not think that you're crazy. Fuck what everybody else thinks. Sit down, have the conversation with yourself. I'm getting so animated about this right now. This is when I know I'm passionate about this. I am passionate. I'm gonna lower it. I'm gonna lower it down. I'm gonna, like my mom says, take it down a notch. Take it down a notch. You're getting loud. You're getting loud. I'm getting loud because I want you to understand how important you are. We forget that. We forget that in the middle of having kids. We forget that in the middle of getting married. We forget that in the middle of all the rest of our family and our jobs and whatever else you got going on outside the household. We forget how important it is to stay centered. And sometimes the only way to stay centered is by having a conversation with yourself. Checking in with yourself. We check in with everyone else. How often do we check in with ourselves? And so 2023, I didn't get my man, I didn't get my husband, I didn't even get my boyfriend. I didn't even get him, okay? But did I date and did I get myself? Did I get my motherfucking self? Did I get myself, bitch? I got myself. Y'all. I got myself. Oh, man. Y'all understand? I don't think y'all understand how beautiful this feels. Like when you miss your child, like your child starts wandering off and you call them, you're like, where'd you go? Nikki! I'm calling my younger self. Nikki! And then there she is. She's looking at me like, Mom, you found me. I'm like, I found you. How many of y'all are still looking for y'all baby selves? How many of y'all still looking for y'all little selves? And you don't even know it. You don't even know it. Because you haven't dived in. You ain't gone deep enough. You just scratched the surface. Baby, you just scratched the surface. Okay? So anyway, we got into all this because I was talking about the beauty of being vulnerable and the beauty of learning in the past year what it means to be vulnerable and what vulnerability has brought into my life. What it's made me find in myself. I can truly honestly say, like, I can tell y'all a story. There are some stories I could tell, and I have to stop myself. I'm like, okay, I can't go into that too deep. But the more I continue to talk about it, the easier it becomes for me to be like, okay, this is you. This is your story, and you're owning it. And you're not embarrassed by it, and you're not ashamed of it. This is who you are. It's made you who you are, and you just got to start asking yourself, like, why? Oh, wait, now I understand. I run away from relationships because I'm afraid of being abandoned. Because the very first time I gave my heart to someone, he ran off. Oh, got it. It makes sense. Because I know that doesn't mean the next person's going to do the same thing. But now I understand where these triggers come from and where these old wounds start coming from and why I start acting certain ways. Because I'm able to define them now. I'm able to sit in them now. I'm able to talk to myself about them. You got it? You got it? So if I'm going to leave you guys with any advice, which I left you with a whole bunch of it. I always get to this point like, won't leave you with any advice. I've already told y'all a lot of advice. The advice is make sure you sit down with yourselves and ask yourselves the questions that you have been too afraid to ask yourselves. Ask yourselves the questions like, why am I the way I am? Why do I do this when someone does this? Why do I let people just run all over me? Why am I in my people pleasing mode? Or why am I not in my people pleasing mode? Why do I just say fuck everybody? Why do when people cross the line with me, I just go ghost instead of talking to them? You know, even in that, a lot of people say they like their peace, but even in that, what they're failing to realize is they really don't like confronting problems. You know? And I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying sometimes there's something even a little bit deeper. We applaud certain things, but there's still something deeper to it. So ask yourself the why. Don't be afraid to ask the why. That's all I'm saying. Get to know you. Get to know you. Anyway, I'm beating a dead freaking horse here, and I need to get up out of here. And with that being said, I'm going to let y'all go. Because I don't like listening too long. I don't like talking too long. And it's already been both. For you and me. You like, Nikki, can y'all? Yeah, I will. The end. I appreciate you listening to me. There are 100,000 different podcasts you could be listening to. And you are here listening with me. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you. I really do. So on that note, I'm going to let you go until next week. And then, or the week after next. I don't even know how I'm doing this anymore. I said I was going to do every other week, but we're going to see how we do it. When I get to Cali, I'm really going to hone in and do what I need to do. But for now, let your girl figure out some stuff, okay? We figuring it out, and we're going to figure this stuff out together. And I appreciate y'all for being here. I appreciate you always rocking with me. I appreciate you listening to this podcast. I appreciate you being here. And on that note, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to talk to you later, all right? Have a good day, good night, whatever you're doing. Bye! And bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hello Me, It's Me with Nikki D Lovely. Just remember, you can't change who you were yesterday, but you can always learn and grow to become a better version of yourself today. So make sure you do the mental work today for the future you tomorrow, and I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram at Nikki D Lovely or one_broke_mama. You can also find me at nikkidlovely.com and check out my book, No F Boys Allowed. I also have a poetry book coming out pretty soon, so just a little shameless plug. But either way, I will see you guys next time, and thanks again.